There's a kind of silence that screams louder than any insult, the kind you get when your pain doesn't matter to your own family. I didn't think saying no to my sister would break everything open. But when I finally refused to fund her fantasy wedding, she didn't just get angry. She called me a traitor, and someone I barely spoke to finally told the truth for me. My name's Emily. I'm 30, and I've been piecing my life back together after a devastating year. I ran a startup in San Francisco, a travel app connecting solo travelers with local guides, but it collapsed in summer 2023, leaving me with debt stacked higher than I could see past and grappling with self-doubt. I poured my heart into that app, my dream. But now I'm freelancing as a UX designer, working late nights to pay off what I owe. The work keeps me grounded. But in my family, my struggles seem to go unnoticed. Even when I'm breaking, they look to me like I'm made of steel. My older sister Sarah, 36, just got engaged to Ryan and is planning her dream wedding, a lavish affair with a designer dress and a fancy venue in Napa Valley. She's the golden child doted on by mom and dad, while I'm the backup plan called to fix things like dad's taxes or drive Sarah to her endless appointments. Growing up, I was the one who handled the practical stuff, the one they relied on without a second thought. Now, with her wedding looming, I could feel the familiar pressure creeping in a weight I wasn't sure I could carry anymore after my startup's failure. Last Thanksgiving 2023, we gathered at my parents' house in the suburbs of Chicago. I hoped for a break. Mom's pecan pie, Dad's jazz records, maybe a quiet walk in the snowy streets to clear my head. I needed a moment to breathe after months of financial stress and emotional exhaustion. But as soon as I arrived, Sarah pulled me into the kitchen away from the smell of roasting turkey. "Emily, I need $5,000 for the wedding," she said casually, as if it were nothing. "The venue deposit's due next week and we're short." My hands shook around my mug of hot cider. Her words hitting me like a wave. I stood there stunned, knowing this was the start of another storm. I couldn't escape one that would test every ounce of strength I had left. I stared at Sarah, my voice barely a whisper. "I can't," I said, trembling. "My startup went under. I'm drowning in debt." She frowned, her manicured nails tapping the counter impatiently. "Come on, Em, you always figure it out," she said dismissively. "Mom and Dad said you're freelancing. You must have something saved." My stomach twisted into knots. I'd spent months surviving on instant noodles, skipping coffee runs, and working until 2 a.m. to scrape by. Did she really think I had $5,000 just lying around for her wedding? I wanted to scream at the unfairness, but the words stayed lodged in my throat. "I really can't." "Sarah," I said, my voice cracking with the weight of my exhaustion. "I'm sorry." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and she walked away without a word, leaving a cold ache in my chest. Her dismissal cut deep. My pain didn't even register to her, as if my struggles were invisible. That night, as the family laughed over turkey and mashed potatoes, I couldn't shake the heaviness inside me. Sarah's words, "You always figure it out," echoed in my mind, a cruel reminder of how little she understood my reality. I felt like an outsider at my own family's table, the warmth of Thanksgiving unable to reach me. The next morning, while everyone was out, Black Friday shopping, Sarah cornered me in the living room, the Christmas lights casting a faint glow. "Did you think about the money?" she asked, her tone sharp, arms crossed tightly. A storm of anger and guilt churned inside me. I was torn between wanting to support her and needing to protect myself. "Sarah, I told you I can't," I said firmly, my voice steadier now. "I'm in debt. I'm saying no because I have nothing left to give." Her eyes narrowed, and I braced myself for what I knew was coming, a confrontation that had been brewing for years beneath the surface of our sisterhood. Sarah's face twisted with frustration, her voice cutting through the quiet living room. "You're such a traitor, Emily," she snapped. "I'm your sister, and you can't help with my dream wedding. You're so selfish." Her words hit like a punch. Tears stung. Hurt and anger surged in waves. Years of sacrifice driving her to appointments, helping with her errands, supporting her through every milestone flashed in my mind. After all I'd done, I was the selfish one. I clenched my fists, trying to steady myself. "I'm not selfish," I said, my voice trembling with raw emotion. "I've given everything to this family, and now I'm running on empty." "Why can't you see that?" Sarah rolled her eyes as if my words were just an excuse and stormed off, leaving me alone. I sank onto the couch. Her accusations, traitor, selfish, echoing painfully in my head. The weight of her betrayal settled in my chest sharper than I'd expected after years of being the one who always gave in. That night, I couldn't sleep, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt gnawed at me. Maybe I was letting Sarah down, but a fiercer anger burned beneath it. Why didn't my pain matter to her? I grabbed my laptop hands, shaking with resolve, and created an anonymous Reddit account. On a Life Stories subreddit, I poured out my story. Sarah's demand for $5,000, my startup's collapse, the suffocating feeling of being unseen in my own family. I ended with a question: am I wrong for saying no? By morning, the post had exploded with comments. Most supported me, sharing their own stories of being taken for granted. I felt a bittersweet relief wash over me. I wasn't alone, but the shared pain of so many others only deepened the ache in my heart. At 7 a.m., my phone rang. Sarah, her voice shaking with fury. A mutual friend had sent her my Reddit post. The details about Thanksgiving and the $5,000 venue gave me away despite my anonymity. "Did you post about me?" she demanded. My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. I shared my story. "Yes. You made me look like a monster," she shouted. "Everyone's calling me selfish." I took a deep breath, the weight of her anger pressing against me. "I told the truth, Sarah." Her voice cracked with a mix of anger and hurt. Then she hung up, leaving me staring at my phone rattled. An hour later, Mom called, her tone heavy with disappointment. "Why air our family drama online?" "Emily," she asked. Guilt tugged at me, but I couldn't back down because no one listened when I spoke, I said softly. "I've been hurting for years, Mom." She sighed, her voice softening slightly. "I didn't realize it was that bad," she muttered before hanging up. Her words lingered, a painful reminder of how long I'd been overlooked, my struggles buried under the family's expectations. That evening, Ryan texted, "We need to talk." We met at a diner near my parents' house, its neon signs flickering in the dusk. Ryan looked drained, his eyes red, shoulders slumped. "I saw the post," he said quietly. "I checked our joint account. Sarah told me you'd agreed to the money, but she took out a loan behind my back." Disappointment settled in my chest. I'd known Sarah could be selfish, but this was a new low. "She never asked me properly," I said, my voice tired but firm. "She just demanded it." Ryan's jaw tightened. "I've been too passive." He admitted, his voice low with regret. "I should have seen how she treated you. I'm making her pay back every cent she borrowed, and she'll apologize." For the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope that someone in my family saw me as more than a solution to their problems. Days later, while staying at an Airbnb in Chicago, Sarah texted, "Can I come over?" I hesitated, torn between dread and a faint hope, but agreed. She arrived, her eyes puffy, makeup smudged, looking smaller than the commanding sister I'd always known. She held out an envelope, her voice soft. "I'm sorry, Emily." Inside was $1. $200 money she'd borrowed years ago, never intending to repay. "I've been selfish," she admitted, her words barely a whisper. "Ryan's making me see a therapist. I didn't realize how much I hurt you." Her apology tore through me, relief, rage, and grief colliding in a storm I couldn't name. I wanted to forgive her, but her words, traitor, selfish, still burned in my memory. "This isn't just about the money," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "It's about how your demands made me feel like my struggles weren't real, like I was just a tool, not a sister." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't comfort her like I once would have. I was done bending to her needs at the expense of my own. We sat in silence, the tension heavy but not hostile. "I've always been scared of not being enough," Sarah confessed, her voice breaking with vulnerability. "The wedding, the loans, I thought perfection would fix me, but I didn't see what I was doing to you." Her admission struck me. I'd never seen her so raw, so human. It didn't erase the hurt, but it shifted something in me, a small crack in the wall I'd built. I left Chicago the next day, driving back to San Francisco with a heavy heart, but a flicker of relief. Sarah's apology felt genuine, but trust would take time. For the first time, I felt I was stepping out of the shadows, not just for her, but for myself. I deserved better, and I was starting to believe it. Back in San Francisco, I threw myself into freelance work, seeking control amidst the chaos of my emotions. Sarah's confession stayed with me, as did the Reddit comments that had poured in. Strangers shared their own stories of being overlooked by family. One comment striking deep. "You're not selfish for saying no, you're valuing yourself." It hit me hard. I'd always felt guilty for prioritizing myself, but maybe that guilt was misplaced, a remnant of years spent putting everyone else first. A week later, in early December 2023, Mom called, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "I read your Reddit post," she said hesitantly. "I didn't realize how much we'd put on you." Her words sounded foreign after years of feeling unheard, a quiet acknowledgement of my pain. "We thought Sarah needed more support. She's older, had more challenges," she explained. "But we didn't see how that hurt you." "I'm sorry." A lump rose in my throat, a mix of relief and lingering hurt. "I just wanted to matter too." "Mom," I whispered, my voice cracking with the weight of years of silence. Dad joined the call, his tone gruff but sincere. "I'm sorry, kiddo, I should have noticed," his apology. A first hit me harder than I expected, stirring a fragile hope. They invited me to a family dinner in Chicago in February 2024, promising no wedding talk, just reconnection. I agreed, but insisted on driving myself and booking a hotel. I needed my own space after years of being sidelined. Meanwhile, I met Chloe at a San Francisco coffee shop. She'd recognized my Reddit post, having faced similar family struggles. We connected instantly, her warmth a balm to my wounds. "You're not selfish for saying no," she said one day, her words echoing the comment that had shifted my perspective. "You're valuing yourself." For the first time in years, I felt a spark of healing, a sense of being truly seen by someone who understood. In February 2024, I drove to Chicago for the family dinner, booking a hotel for my own space in case things felt overwhelming. The house smelled of Mom's lasagna, Dad's jazz records playing softly, a familiar comfort that eased my nerves, though I stayed cautious, watching for old patterns to resurface. Sarah was there, quieter than usual, Ryan beside her, his hand on hers in a subtle show of support. No one mentioned the wedding or Reddit post, a small but meaningful relief. Mom asked about my freelance work, listening intently as I described a project for a small business. Dad asked about my startup questions he'd never bothered with before, his curiosity a new and welcome change. I felt a shift, like they were seeing me beyond the reliable sister I'd always been. Sarah spoke up, her voice hesitant but earnest. "I've been in therapy a few weeks," she said, meeting my gaze. "I've started asking Ryan for help instead of expecting you to fix things. It's hard to let go of control, but I'm trying." Her effort felt genuine, though her past words, "traitor, selfish," still lingered, a quiet ache in my memory. Ryan added, "I should have stepped in sooner." "Emily, I'm making sure Sarah doesn't overstep." His accountability meant something, a sign of growth. I hadn't expected. Dinner ended quietly. No big reconciliations, just a shared understanding that we were all learning to be better. Driving back to my hotel, I felt a cautious hope, a fragile belief that we could rebuild something stronger. I'd keep my boundaries firm, but for the first time, I saw a path forward where I wasn't just the sister who fixed things, but one who was valued for who she was, back in San Francisco. Chloe and I grew closer, meeting for coffee or gallery visits on weekends. Her presence was a comfort, her ability to listen without judgment, a gift I'd long craved. One sunny afternoon outside a gallery, she said, "You've changed, Emily. You're not the same person from that Reddit post." I smiled, a bittersweet warmth settling in my chest. Saying no to Sarah taught me I could protect my peace without losing who I am. I told her, my voice steady with newfound clarity. It was a lesson I never knew I needed. Chloe nodded, her eyes warm. "You're just learning to love yourself first." Her words sank deep, building a quiet strength in me. I wasn't just the reliable sister anymore. I was Emily, a woman with dreams and a right to her own happiness. Sarah showed small changes too. She texted about my work, a first, and shared a painting from an art class her therapist suggested I canceled a big wedding vendor, she wrote. "I don't need perfection to be happy," I replied politely, still cautious. I wasn't ready to fully trust her, but I could see her trying to grow. Mom and Dad kept evolving in their own way. Mom called to chat, asking, "Are you free?" A shift from her old assumptions that I'd always be available. Dad sent photos of a bookshelf he'd built, no longer asking me to fix things for him. These small gestures gave me hope, not for a perfect family, but for a healthier one, where I could be seen for who I was, not just what I could do. With Chloe's support, I began to see my worth in a new light, a perspective that felt like the first step toward true healing. By early 2024, life in San Francisco felt lighter, a welcome change after months of heaviness. I landed a big freelance project with a tech startup, a chance to rebuild my confidence after my company's failure. Chloe and I grew closer, our friendship turning into something deeper, a quiet romance that felt grounding. We'd walk along the Embarcadero, watching the sunset over the bay, talking about art dreams and the boundaries we'd learned to set with our families. With Chloe, there was no pressure, just mutual respect. A breath of fresh air in a life that had felt so stifling for so long. Sarah and I were still navigating our relationship, a slow and careful dance. She'd slip into old habits like dominating a family group chat with her wedding plans, but she'd catch herself and apologize. "I'm a work in progress," she said during a call, her voice tinged with self-awareness I hadn't heard before. I appreciated her effort, though I kept my guard up, not ready to be her emotional crutch again. Ryan started checking in, asking how I was a small gesture that meant more than he likely realized, a sign of his growing role as an ally in our family. One evening on my balcony with Chloe, sharing a bottle of wine, she asked, "Do you think your family gets it now?" I watched the city lights twinkle below, reflecting on how far we'd come. "They don't have to understand everything," I said softly. "They're starting to respect my space. That's enough for me." Chloe squeezed my hand, her smile warm. "You've come so far." "Emily," I felt a swell of pride knowing I'd reclaimed my worth, not just in my family's eyes, but in my own. A victory that felt hard-won and deeply personal. My story isn't a fairy tale. No dramatic finale, just a journey. I'm still walking. By April 2024, I was thriving in San Francisco, balancing work and my relationship with Chloe. We supported each other through life's messiness, learning that love, whether with a partner, friend, or family, should never break you. It should make you feel seen. Chloe taught me that, and I held it close, a guiding light in my healing. Sarah kept up with therapy, scaling back her wedding to a smaller ceremony. I was trying to control everything because I was scared. She admitted during a call, her voice raw with honesty. I told her I was proud, but I stayed firm. I wasn't her emotional crutch anymore. Mom invited me for Easter, saying, "We'd love to see you if you're free." Her tone showed respect for my space. A change I hadn't thought possible. Ryan checked in occasionally, a quiet ally. Now his support, a far cry from the passive brother-in-law I'd once known. I once thought love meant sacrifice, that being the reliable sister was my role, but that moment I said no to Sarah on Thanksgiving marked a new me, one who knows true love doesn't demand my well-being as a price. My family and I are still learning, but I've built a life where I'm seen for who I am, not what I can do for others. That's the most beautiful beginning I could ask for, a foundation built on my own terms, rooted in the strength I found within myself.